Over the past year, I have become a massive fan of the Ricoh GR series of cameras. This is the GR3X. It's a camera that I have taken with me on trips, on chill days out, taking pictures. Really, anytime when I don't want to take a full-size mirrorless camera setup with me, this is the camera that I'm going to be throwing in my bag, or even just in my pocket, because you don't really need a camera bag for a Ricoh GR. And so fast forward to today, and Ricoh were kind enough to send me out a GR4 to test for a couple of days. So sadly, I'm not going to have a ton of time with this camera, so it's definitely going to be a short-term review. I've got to send this back in a couple of days. Before we jump in, I also want to say that this is not sponsored in any way by Ricoh. I pretty much asked them to loan the camera. I don't get to keep it, and also they're not going to get to preview this video before it goes live. So everything that I say in this video is my own opinion. So one of my biggest issues with the GR3X was the battery life. It did not last long at all, and you had to be very conservative with how you use the camera, switching it off whenever you're not using it, and just being careful if you wanted the battery to last an entire day. So with the GR4, they have actually upgraded the battery. So this is a brand new 1800 milliamp hour battery cell. I believe the GR3X is 1350 milliamp hours. So it's a pretty substantial upgrade, and the battery is also physically a little bit larger. So in order to make room for that larger battery, they've actually taken out the full size SD card slot and replaced it with a micro SD. But then they've also added internal storage. So I believe this has 50 something gigabytes of internal storage, and I actually haven't put an SD card in this camera yet because I've just been relying on that storage. I've been able to take around 1,000 photos with the internal memory. So for me, that is definitely plenty for a full day of photography. Unless I'm shooting portraits or something like that for everyday walk around, street photography or travel photography, that is going to be plenty for me. And if I did own this camera, I probably wouldn't really even put an SD card in the camera unless I specifically knew I was going to be shooting a lot and I couldn't back up the camera at all during the trip. So realistically, do you notice the improvement in the battery life? For me, it's a definite yes. I was actually so shocked with how quickly the battery on the GR3X runs down. Maybe that's just the fact that I'm used to shooting with more professional mirrorless cameras with really great battery life. With the GR4, I was almost able to get through an entire day of shooting. Sure, it's definitely not on the same level as my other mirrorless cameras, which I can sometimes just leave on while I'm not shooting. I'm definitely being more conscious with a camera like this. But the other day I was out shooting from I think around 9 AM to about 2 PM. I didn't even get halfway through the battery on the GR4. So that is really, really encouraging. I think this may have solved my biggest problem with the GR series cameras. As I mentioned, this is a brand new sensor. It's a 26 megapixel sensor versus the 24 that was in the GR3. And for me, I don't think that they have consciously made a decision to increase the resolution. It feels more like they're just modernizing the sensor. I think the sensor in the previous model was fantastic. I don't think this was really a crucial upgrade, given the previous model is like a 6-year-old camera by now, I think, something like that. It makes sense that they would modernize the sensor. In terms of the body changes between the old model and the new model, they are very, very similar. However, the GR4 is ever so slightly slimmer than the GR3. There are also some differences with the buttons that took me a little bit of time to get used to. So now we just have a 4-way like D-pad controller, whereas we used to have like a turning wheel here on the older model. And every time I would go to review my photos on the GR4, I would go to scroll the wheel. So I had to get used to that. And now they've added this infinitely scrolling wheel here, where it just used to, on the previous model, be like this back and forth kind of toggle switch. So it doesn't actually rotate around. And then they've also added this rocker switch, which I believe was on the previous models before the GR3. And now they've added it back. And I actually love this because it gives you control over all 3 settings: ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. So you can just program these 3 dials to do those 3 settings, whereas on the GR3, you only had the front wheel, the back wheel, and you did have to press extra buttons in order to change the ISO. So this definitely makes the GR4 more of a manual camera for me. I can actually use this in manual mode, whereas the GR3, I was using this in aperture priority or program mode and just dialing in exposure compensation. Other than those small changes, the body design and the form factor is pretty much the same as the previous models. In terms of its autofocus, the GR4 feels like a completely different camera to the GR3. I definitely don't expect a lot from the GR series, considering they're such lightweight, small, compact cameras, but the GR4 in terms of its focus ability, it's doing a really great job. I've had 0 frustrations with this shooting out in the field, and I'm sure that all the street photographers out there will really appreciate this upgrade to the autofocus system. The new lens also seems really great. To be honest, I am not a 28mm photographer, and that was really apparent during the last couple of days of shooting with this camera, is that I really prefer the 40mm focal length. So while I love the upgrades to this camera, I will probably be patiently waiting, and I have no idea if they have plans to do this or not, but obviously there's the GR3X with the 27mm, which is a 40mm equivalent. I would definitely really prefer to have a GR4X. It's definitely more my style in terms of focal length. But in terms of this lens, it seems to perform really great. It seems really sharp. I don't really care about lens sharpness. One thing that I will say that this lens struggles with, and I'm pretty sure it's the same on the previous models, is that it's not so great shooting into bright light. There's like a big kind of smeared flare, so just be aware of that. Another small thing that they've added is the ability to add grain to your JPEGs as well. Previously, you could only add grain to black and white images, I believe, so it's nice that they've added that feature as well. This camera is pretty much the Contax T2 of 2025. It's pocketable, beautiful image quality, it's got a really great lens on it, and you can pretty much take it anywhere with you without any dramas. But if you know what I'm talking about with the Contax T2, it is a pricey camera for what it is. And you also have to love the focal length in order to justify it. So 28mm is personally not for me, but if you love the 28mm focal length, then by all means go for it. If you're not sure whether you love it or not, I would definitely consider it heavily before picking up a camera like this, because obviously you can't change the lens. So overall, this is a really great refinement of an already fantastic camera. Even just going back like 2 months before this camera was even announced, the Ricoh GR3s and 3Xs were still on back order, even though it's like almost a 6-year-old camera at this point. So I guess that's just testament to not only like how good the camera is, but also the uptick in popularity of like super pocketable large sensor cameras. I think what they've really done with the GR4 is just minimize sort of the downsides or the downfalls of the previous model. If you're a serious photographer who wants a really great pocketable backup camera, or if you're just trying to be really discreet, maybe you're shooting street photography and you don't want to seem like you've got a really big serious camera, then the GR4 is perfect. I'm really excited to see what Ricoh do next. Obviously, I'm hoping they'll release a GR4X. We'll see in the future. But yeah, if you have any other questions for me, please leave them down in the comments section below. I'm sure there's some stuff that I missed. Anything that you're wondering about, leave it down there. I really appreciate you guys for sticking around again, and I'll catch you all in the next video.